Hello everyone and welcome to Board Game Bits, the show where we talk about board game news. This week, flip and write game Globetrotting on Kickstarter right now. MicroMacro Crime City comes with a follow-up and expand-alone all-in. Protect your fellow witches and become the head witch in Septima. Skyrise lets players build cities, and next Zombicide spin-off is a flip and write game called Gear Up. Plan out your vacation with Globetrotting. In the upcoming flip and write game Globetrotting, which is on Kickstarter right now, players will be flipping cards that will tell them where their next vacation destination is going to be, and they'll have to plan a route to go through the places as cheaply as possible. And presumably, you're also trying to have lots of fun because, you know, it is vacation, and if you're not having fun, you should not go. A nice little twist on the regular flip and write is that this game actually comes with 4 globes, which you use to plan your routes. It's an actual globe of the world, although it is, I think it's like this big, more or less. And you're turning it on its thing. On the base, there's a ring that shows you the cost, and basically it depends on the distance that you travel. You'll draw a line with your marker, and you'll know how much it'll cost. Yeah, it's on Kickstarter right now. The goal was 47,000 euros. They're currently on 82,000, so they have safely doubled that. But you can still back it for 23 more days. MicroMacro follow-up all-in announced on Board Game Geek. On Board Game Geek, we can find the follow-up for the popular crime game MicroMacro Crime City, which will be called All In. This game is a expand alone. You don't need the previous game at all, but the map will fit with the previous ones if you want to make a big wall poster out of the whole collection. That being said, the map is 75 by 110 centimeters, so it's already pretty big by itself, as are the previous ones. If you're an American or someone else who uses feet rather than centimeters, 110 centimeters is about 4 feet, I believe, something like that. So it's very far from small. Depending on your board game table, it might take up the whole thing. It might take up a large portion. If you're like me and you only have this little salon table, it won't even fit on it. So there's that. So stitching them all together might be a big ask unless you have a huge section of wall that you can pin it on. In Crime City, you're trying to solve, as I said, multiple crimes. You can see a starting point, but you'll have to find the starting point by yourself, and it's different with each crime. And it's like, oh, find this person on the map, and then you look around, oh, he's there. And if you found the right spot, which the card will tell you once you flip, it's like, no, that's not where you're looking for, or yes, that is where you're looking for, then cool, you can go to the next one. That'll be, oh yeah, this person has just been robbed. Who did it? And you'll look around, oh, this guy did it. It's the one with, I don't know, carrot nose. And then you follow him around as he goes on his route, probably hiding the stash somewhere, so that you can get it back to the person who has been robbed, presumably. You don't actually do that in the game. It's actually very interesting how the game is frozen in time, but it's at the same time, there's multiple things happening simultaneously that happen at different times chronologically in this still. That's a bit weird. It's also completely white, but I know a lot of friends who chose to color things in once they've already solved the crime, because of course if you color everything in, it becomes a lot easier. But if you do it after you solve the crime, that's not as much as a problem. All In will come with a magnifying glass, which is useful because, you know, pictures are pretty small. There's a lot of detail on those maps, so being able to magnify that, pretty nice, and now you won't have to buy your own. We don't have a release date yet, so just wait around for that, I guess. Septima has witches compete and protect each other. On Kickstarter, the Coven game Septima has launched recently. It currently has 12 days to go. The goal was 70,000 euros, but they've actually already raised 443 euros. So, you know, looks like they're doing just fine. That being said, if you want to get this game early, you might want to consider kickstarting it as well. As I'm looking at the pictures, the most notable thing to me is the beautiful meeples. I know a lot of games these days are going for detailed plastic miniatures, but for me, a good-looking wooden meeple will win 10 out of 10 times, so this is something I really appreciate. Anyway, so in this game, you're trying to become the Septima, which is the matriarch of the witches. I don't know if it's of your specific coven or of all covens together. I don't know that much about witch lore in that sense. That being said, while you're competing to become the Septima, you're also trying to protect your fellow witches of the coven from the witch hunts, because it takes place around that time, you know, the Salem witch hunts, maybe the Spanish Inquisition. Women are getting killed left and right for being accused of being witches, and you, of course, want to keep them safe. So there's some cooperation, but there's also some competition. I'm quite interested to see how it works out, but mostly, I mean, I'm looking forward to owning those meeples. City building game Skyrise on Kickstarter right now. On Kickstarter, you can back a game called Skyrise, in which people will be building skyscrapers in a city. I think it's a sky city even, and you're trying to get the most prestige by being responsible for the most or the most eye-catching skyscrapers in the city. To me, it was very notable the way the game looks. It has, I know previously I mentioned that wooden meeples are the best thing for me every single time, but this does have some really good looking plastics. You have those boards, which it looks like they're each a section of the floating city, and they have a ring of steampunk-esque structures around it that are keeping it afloat, and then these structures are also quite detailed and good looking. I do still prefer wooden meeples, but there's no denying that this looks great. As I record this, the Kickstarter will go on for 12 more days. They were looking to raise $36,000, but they already have 238, so that's close to 10 times the amount they were hoping for. So it looks like this is indeed a popular a project that you might be interested in as well. Or maybe your friends have already kickstarted and then you don't need it, because the way board games work, you only need one in your friend group and then just play it with that every time. It is made by Roxley Games, who are also responsible for Dice Throne and Santorini, I believe it's called. So if you're a fan of those games, I should clarify that is the publisher and not necessarily the creator. The creator is Gavin Brown, who I don't know from anything, but maybe you have more luck on that than I do. And yeah, it's really good looking. I'm assuming it'll be fun too, but of course you won't know until you get it at home. And I can't wait to see how it pans out. Zombicide spin-off Gear Up is a flippin' right. Cool Minis or Not has announced a new Zombicide spin-off, which is called Gear Up. This is going to be a flippin' right. Now that to me is quite surprising, because I don't know if you've played Zombicide. I have. They are a dungeon crawling style game where you pick an adventurer. You get some starting gear, but mostly you'll be looting different rooms, looking for better weapons, and then the whole time there are zombies spawning everywhere, and you have to clear the objective. There are scenarios. It's not so much a campaign as that each scenario is just a different challenge, and of course later scenarios will be more challenging, and they are kind of stitched together to be a single story, but you can totally play them separately. In fact, if you're playing it as a campaign, it'll become a little bit weird how the characters get reset to level 1 every time. Oh, and yes, this is a game where you actually have levels. You level up, and then when you do, your character gets more abilities. In fact, you can at some points even choose between different abilities and choose what kind of playstyle you want to go for. So that's what regular Zombicide looks like, and there are several spin-offs already. You have regular Zombicide, you have the one in space, of which I can't remember the name, and you have the two medieval ones that are Zombicide Black Plague and Zombicide Green Horde. Green Horde being a follow-up to Black Plague, actually, rather than a spin-off of its own. But these are all separate games that you might be able to mix some that take place in the same era, but you won't be able to mix, let's say, Black Plague with the regular modern age one. Well, all that to say that what we would expect from a Zombicide spin-off is just another dungeon crawler. But what we're getting is a flip and write, which, by the way, is not made by the same creators, which makes sense because presumably they don't know anything about making flip and writes. Here you are flipping tiles that'll show you Tetris-style shapes. Some of them will show enemy zombies, some of them might be locations where you can find gear, just like in the base game. You're gearing up, you're killing off zombies, and you're preparing for the eventual final boss of that game. I don't even know if there are different final bosses or if it's always the same one. Actually, I assume there are several ones because otherwise the replayability of this game will be pretty low. And we want high replayability because otherwise, you know, what are you buying the game for? Just to play it once? We don't have too much info yet. It is co-op, just like all the other Zombicide games. And we don't know when it's going to launch yet, but you can read up some details on Board Game Geek if you want to. This is a filler. That's all for this week's Board Game Bits. You can come back tomorrow for the next video game vids, or wait 1 week for the next Board Game Bits. Bye!